Hey guys, welcome back. So on Wednesday, I posted a video talking about some of my hives and that I saw that they were really struggling and that I made the claim that oxalic acid was killing my hives. Well, I now have more information that I want to share with you guys. Thanks to you guys and all of the great information that you sent my way, I was able to do some research and I now know what exactly happened. So I want to take some time to talk about that today and kind of like keep this discussion going because it's so cool learning all of these things when it comes to beekeeping. So let me start from the very beginning. So what I ended up doing was I treated my hives with oxalic acid in hopes to lower the mite levels. I had seen a couple mites on some bees, so I knew my mite level was probably high, and I'd rather be on top of that rather than letting them start to grow exponentially like they do, and then in the fall time, not really being able to get that mite level down. So I did my first round of OA at the very beginning of July, and I ended up doing only 2 rounds. The first round I did first thing at nighttime, right at sunset, so that all of the forager bees would be inside the hive, and hopefully, in theory, all of the bees would come in contact with this oxalic acid. Since oxalic acid doesn't penetrate any of the brood, it only kills mites on the bees. So first treatment at sunset. I then did the second treatment 6 days later. Now, there is a little bit of controversy on which way is the best way to treat with oxalic acid. There's a lot of new studies coming out all the time. Some people recommend treating every 4 days, every 5 days, every 6 days, 7 days. It's whatever works best for you. I usually did 5 days in the past, but this time I did 6 days because that's what worked out with my schedule and the weather. So at 6 days after the first treatment, I did the second round of OA at sunrise. It was probably like 6:20-ish a.m. in the morning, and it ended up being really hot that day, upper 80s. It's also been very, very humid because I am located in Michigan, so we have an insane amount of humidity. So temperatures were definitely up there. And what I ended up seeing is I came back a week later so that I could then do that next round of OA, and I saw that my hives were literally collapsing. And I instantly became super confused because I didn't even think that it would have been the oxalic acid at first, because oxalic acid has always been known to be very gentle on your bees, and many other beekeepers have always said this too. I've used OA before and I've never had any problems with it, never had any reactions on my bees. In fact, I like it, and the reason I was using it is because I didn't want it to interfere with any of the brood production or any of the honey too, because you can use it with honey supers on, and it's one of those treatments that as long as you're willing to do those as long as you're willing to do those 5 treatments, then it's okay. It works the best for if you're trying to grow your colony. So when I went into my hives and saw they weren't doing well, I was super confused. I instantly thought, okay, let's just start going down the list of reasons for why all the hives would possibly look like this. First thing was, okay, well, what if maybe it's a queen problem? Because these are new queens that have not been tested. These are new genetics that we brought in this year from out of state just to see what other queens are like, and to, like I said, bring in other genetics into the yard as well. And I didn't really see the best laying pattern from them yet. In fact, when I went into the hive, I didn't see any eggs whatsoever except like a softball amount of eggs in a tiny little brood pattern. So I was like, okay, this queen must suck the fact that she's not laying sheets on sheets of brood like she should be right now. Okay, so maybe bad queen. My second thought was, okay, well, I see a shotgun brood pattern. What if I have European foul brood? Because this kind of looks like European foul brood, looking at the pattern of how the capped brood is. And I looked deeper into the cells, but the problem was I didn't see any larvae that appeared to be sick. And usually with European foul brood, you will see larvae that just starts to sink down onto the bottom of the cell. They will lay flat on the cell so that whatever side side of the cell is facing towards the ground, gravity pulls them down. They will lay flat and just look like they're just like deflated, and will gradually turn like a brownish yellowish color until they become a scale that you can then tip the frame and see the scale right there on the frame in each cell. Well, I didn't see any of that. All I saw was this spotty brood pattern. So I'm like, well, and I didn't smell anything either. So I'm like, well, if it is European foul brood, when I see sick larvae, I'm not seeing sick larvae. I'm just seeing this shotgun brood pattern. So then my next thing that I was thinking, okay, well, it could also be poor nutrition. Now, this actually is 100% a factor, because we did have about a week's worth of rain right before I looked into these. That is a general rule of thumb that I've always try to go by, and that is never look into your hives after a lot of rain. You will be very, very disappointed, and you will think that your whole entire apiary is collapsing, but I promise you it's not. It's just because it rained so much, so they went through so much food, and they have so many bees right now because they're supposed to be on a flow. Also, this has been a bad year for where I'm at, so they haven't really had the best flow like they normally would. They haven't been bringing in the honey like they normally would, or nectar. And also, these hives are splits that we made that were building comb. So that's another factor. They're not going to be pulling in a lot of honey to store. Instead, they're going to be using it to draw out as much comb as they possibly can. So that being a factor, it is possible that that was also shrinking their brood nest, but that wouldn't cause them to have a spotty brood pattern, was also my argument. It also wouldn't cause the queen to just completely shut off laying. There are dearths down south, but up in Michigan, we don't have dearths like that. We have dearths, but like only for like a week or two. It's not something that's like a month on a thing during the summertime. So I just didn't really see the queen completely stopping laying like that. But I was still open to, okay, maybe we just need to feed them. Maybe it's the queens. Honestly, I was preparing to have to requeen all of them, because we also had other hives in Bee Yard 51. Noted, we're not treating Bee Yard 51 whatsoever, so they didn't have any OA treatments on them at all, which would make sense why they looked so good. So I was like, those queens are looking so good, so I guess we'll just have to use those instead of using them for our nucs next spring as our overwinter nucs. I guess maybe we'll just have to use them to requeen all of these hives. Really sucks, but... Well, okay, then Casey mentioned, well, these hives didn't look like this before the oxalic acid treatment. And I was like, you know, you're not wrong about that, but oxalic acid has always been so gentle on the bees. That is Moxie back there, our little Aussie shepherd, and she has a thing for bugs. I see she's looking at a bee, and I would not suggest biting that, girly. It's not going to feel good. Yeah, so she's just watching that bee over there. Anyways, okay. So I had argued against it to Casey that I don't think it was oxalic acid. Oxalic acid is very gentle on the bees, and it doesn't have an upper temperature either, because his argument was like, well, you did do it in the morning that day and it got really, really hot. What if it was too hot for the bees? And I even looked it up on Google, as if Google knows everything, but it even confirmed what I believed, that oxalic acid does not have an upper temperature. You can use it at any temperature pretty much throughout the year. That's what's so good about it. So he was like, okay, well, let's just go look at our other yards and see what those look like. So we went to all of our other yards that we did the OA treatment on, and every single one of them looked exactly like that yard. It looked like they took 10 steps back, which this time of year is very defeating, especially living in Michigan as a beekeeper, because you only have so much time to build up your hives and get them ready for the winter time. So we went to the other yards, saw they weren't doing good. That's when I finally started to think, okay, maybe oxalic acid is the problem. Well, let's just give it a week and see how they look in a week. And we'll kind of just like keep playing it by ear on what we need to do with these hives to get them ready. And a week went by, we went back out to check on the hives, and all of a sudden, the queen is laying like crazy. Okay, so it's not the queen. I see a great a great egg laying pattern, and the hives are on track to start building up, and everything will be a-okay. But one of the things I instantly thought of as I was going through these hives is, this kind of looks similar to as if I put a formic acid treatment on my hives. When Casey and I went into the hives yesterday in those yards, we saw that the queen was laying like crazy, similar to what you see after using formic acid. You'll see that the formic will burn brood, but then when you go back into the hive like a week or a week and a half later, that queen is on fire trying to catch up. It was 100% oxalic acid, but I'm seeing the same things I do in my hive as I did when I used to use formic acid. And that is that formic acid has been known to burn brood. But if you have a good queen, your queen will come back so crazy fast and start laying like crazy to build that hive up. And that is exactly what I was seeing. The queens were laying sheets on sheets of eggs, which means these hives are going to explode in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So I just tucked this thought back away into the back of my mind and posted that video to you guys to see what you guys thought about the whole entire situation. I had completely stopped treating with OA after that second treatment. I didn't want to risk it again, so we've just been waiting to see what has happened. And then 2 weeks later, I just checked again, and these hives, I'm telling you, oh my gosh, I am so thankful that they're going to be okay. They look great now. But this still really made me scratch my head until this video came out, and I had a couple of you guys that know a lot about chemistry and are like little science nerds like I am. And a couple of you mentioned, hey, did you know that oxalic acid converts into formic acid at temperatures above 350 degrees Fahrenheit? No way! You're joking, right? No, they're not joking. So I Googled this, okay? And it said exactly at high temps above 140 degrees Celsius or 248 degrees Fahrenheit, oxalic acid predominantly decomposes into formic acid and CO2, carbon dioxide. Oh my gosh, this explains so much, and this exactly explains why I noticed I was having a similar reaction in the hive that I see after using formic acid. So my oxalic acid vaporizer is set at 445 degrees Fahrenheit. It's set in the instructions. That is what is recommended, so I left it at that. And I guess when it heats up that much, that would explain why during the second treatment, when I did it in the morning and it was super hot that day, why it had a reaction in the hive as if it was formic acid on a very hot day. Formic acid can't be used in the hive above temperatures of 85 degrees, but even then, at least in my area, because it's so humid, I don't like using it above 82, 81 degrees, especially if it's a hive that's going to be sitting in the sun all day. It's going to be way hotter in that hive and you will end up burning brood. So this absolutely blows my mind. So, okay, then my next question, because I have that experiment, like sciencey kind of brain, is, okay, if oxalic acid converts into formic acid, can we just use this as a treatment? Because formic acid penetrates the brood cappings and it's able to kill all the mites on the bees. It's what a lot of people like to use. Only thing is it's fairly expensive, and also the temperatures are kind of hard to work with in different regions of our country and really different regions around the world in the summertime. And so my wheels just started turning. Okay, what else happens if, like, why isn't this a thing? Why doesn't anybody else know about this? Why isn't this being talked about with oxalic acid converting into formic acid? So I looked into it more, and I was seeing that there are some other reactions that happen when it heats up that hot, that it could also continue to turn into formaldehyde, which I was not able to find much information on the internet about what formaldehyde exactly does to bees. All I saw is that it is used as a disinfectant, and it's also used as a fungicide. And I did see that it could be used as a pesticide as well, but I couldn't find any information on what exact insects it kills or how exactly it works and how it affects them, because some insecticides are okay, that bees can actually handle those. I mean, partially, I guess you could say they're not the best for them, but they still survive, you know. But like I said, I couldn't find much information about it. So if you guys, any of you chemistry and science nerds, know anything about what formaldehyde does to bees, please send it my way. I'm just curious, and I would love to know what reactions it has, because it was also saying that it does. There was a couple studies I found that they were using formaldehyde to deactivate viruses as well, which is just an interesting find to see. So I don't know. I am just mind blown that what I was seeing was actually correct, and that I'm thankful that the hives are going to be okay, but I still just don't understand, why is this not being talked about more? Because I had a lot of people telling me that, like, hey, I don't think, like, oxalic acid, be careful about making those claims, because oxalic acid works great and nobody has problems with it. But I'm just showing you guys what I am seeing happening in live time, so we can just keep the discussion going and learn together as beekeepers, because we're like little researchers out in our bee yard, constantly learning and finding out new things. We only know a fraction of what it is to be a bee and everything else that's involved. So I don't know. I just thought this was really cool, and I just wanted to share this with you guys really fast and kind of give you some closure to the whole situation on what happened with my hives, and that they are doing a lot better now. I had put pollen patties on them actually yesterday after I did that last check. It's been 2 weeks exactly, and I just want to keep that ball rolling. We're starting to get some nectar coming in, which could have just been because they were so heavily impacted by the oxalic acid that they weren't really able to go out and forage as well. So yeah, we'll see how they do over the next couple weeks, and I'll keep you guys posted. And thank you to everybody who did reach out in that video, and I would still love to hear what you guys think in the comments of this video. So I'll see you guys in the comments. We'll chat a little bit, and don't quit and be fit. Oh, also, I just want to say one more thing before I let you guys go. I am going to be doing mite checks over the next week or two, because I am very curious to see if it did turn into formic acid, what did it do to the mite levels? I only did 2 treatments, so if it just completely got rid of all of the mites, this is going to be a really cool finding. Oh, it must be noon. All right, see you guys. Don't quit and be fit.